That's so brilliant! This video is sponsored by Case Filters. You're out on location, you're blown away by all the beauties of Mother Nature, you take some amazing photographs, and when you go home you think you have some killer shots in your bag. But when you import them to Lightroom, you realize that the images don't look like you have seen them out on location. Either you made some technical mistakes, the composition doesn't work, the light doesn't work, whatever it is. In this video I offer you the solutions so that you're never disappointed again when you import your photos to Lightroom. Hi my friends, very nice to see you. I made a poll recently and I have to say the result was quite shocking me. 3 of 4 photographers are disappointed when they import their image to Lightroom, and this for different reasons. And the good news is all that is quite easy to fix. And I thought to make this video even more interesting, let's explore the reasons for disappointments arranged in an order from the least happening to the most common. So here we go. 17% of you said you face the issue that you're absolutely happy with the compositions out in the field, but as soon as you import your image to Lightroom, you're unhappy with the composition. So you thought you got a killer shot, but then you saw in Lightroom that the composition doesn't work. How is this possible? Now, basically, there are 2 things that could happen. First of all, our eyes don't see the same as our camera does. Our camera gets the entire scene on the sensor. So let's say when we use a wide-angle lens with a focal length of 24mm for instance, which is often used for landscape photography, the camera sees a field of view of around 74 degrees. And with a 16mm lens, the field of view is even around 107 degrees. And our camera sees that all in just one go. The problem with our eyes is now that the field of view where it sees sharp is just around 3 degrees. 3. 1, 2, 3, and that's not much, right? So it's quite difficult to take a whole scene in with a lens of just 3 degrees, right? So what happens is we scan the landscapes with our eyes. Our eyes look just at different spots in a scene, and then our brain stitches everything together with a kind of a content-aware field, if you want, between all the gaps. You see, it is just normal that we don't see the same as our camera does. This is also why different photographers see one and the same scene totally different. The solution is quite simple. What I do is I make a little trick here. I just take my phone, I turn on my camera app and I build my composition with my phone. In this way I see the composition more like a camera does. I see the entire scene in one go. You could also use your camera, of course, but trust me here, the phone offers multiple advantages over the camera. First of all, the display is better than on the camera. The phone is lighter. I feel more flexible with it than with going around with a big camera, especially when I'm climbing around in a difficult terrain. It can't happen that I press this button here by accident too early this year. The shutter release button. However, the phone offers advantages, and this is why I use the phone first. And when I'm happy with the composition, I just rebuild it with my camera, and then I take the shot. But we have to be careful here. There's a second reason why you could be unhappy with the composition after you have imported it to Lightroom. It is the size of the display. A camera display and also the display of a phone is much smaller than a monitor, of course. But the size of an image makes a big difference to the viewer's experience. I will not go in detail, I made already a whole video about this topic. Just quickly, it's a difference if you can take a scene in with just one side, or if you have to look around on a 4K monitor, for instance. In case you haven't seen the video, I will link it up here for you. the point is, to get rid of this issue, I can highly recommend in the next step to use the viewfinder of your camera, to find you in your composition. And don't get me wrong here, it's good to build up the composition with your phone in the first step. You are able to intake the scene in one go only, like your camera does. It is easier to tell then if the base concept works, or in other words, it's easier to find the base composition. But to find out if the composition also works on a bigger screen or as a print, I can highly recommend to use the viewfinder of the camera to find out how the viewer's experience is when you have to look much more around with your eyes, like it is on a bigger monitor. The phone helps you to find the composition, and the viewfinder helps you to fine-tune it. Super easy, super simple. The name is wrong actually when I think about it. It's not the viewfinder, it's more the view fine-tuner. The viewfinder is more the phone. But no one asked me. However, let's have a look at the next reason of getting disappointed when we import into Lightroom. Composition is so important, but the best composition gets worthless when you made technical mistakes out on location. Every fifth photographer faces the problem that his images are out of focus or that the depth of field doesn't work when importing the image to Lightroom. And I have to say, I faced exactly the same problem for quite a long time, but today really every single photo I take gets sharp, and also the depth of field works all the time. It took me years to find this out, to be honest, although it's really easy to fix. First of all, of course, we have to know where to focus and which aperture we should use. That's really important, and I made already a comprehensive video about that. I will link you the first video up there. It's all about the aperture, and the focus video is linked at the end of the aperture video. But I know photographers who know already where to focus and which aperture to use, but they anyway don't get it to work because of one important thing. And that's so easy to fix actually. What I do is, when I'm out on location and my camera is already in setup, before I take the final shot, I take a test shot and I simply test if my image is in focus. That's so easy. I just zoom in to 100%. On Sony cameras, we just have to double click on the magnifier button and we are immediately at 100% of zoom. And important now, I check the foreground and the distance if both are sharp. If not, I have either to tweak on my focus point, or I have to use another aperture. That's it. Almost, at least. This is how it works for wider vista photos, when we want to get everything pin sharp from front to back. For more tighter vistas instead, or photographs in smaller landscapes, like it is in woodland for instance, we often want to get the distance a tiny bit softer, just to get a better isolation to the distance and also to get a sense of depth in the image. In this case, we want the distance to be a tiny bit blurry maybe, not totally out of focus, just a tiny bit softer. And many photographers struggle with finding the right amount of softness. Is it too much? The image looks out of focus. Is it not enough? Isolation and sense of depth are missing. What I do is I also take a test shot, I zoom in on 100% to the foreground, and then I do one thing. I scroll my magnify window upwards, because in most of the cases the closer elements are at the bottom of the image and the distance elements are more at the top of the image. Be careful in woodland, of course, there are often some closer leaves on the top as well. But at that moment, out in the field, when you're scrolling the zoom window over your image, you usually studied already the composition to the end, and you should know already where in your composition the distant elements are. Just scroll to them from the closer elements and check the transition of sharpness to the distance elements. You need a little bit of practice here, but it's anyway quite easy to come in, I have to say. It simply helps you to see the transitions. My friends, before we will come now to that thing that every third photographer gets wrong out in the field, if you like this video, please give me a thumb up. It helps me, it helps the algorithm, and it helps also other photographers out there to find this video better on YouTube. Thank you therefore. Much better composition. However, now it gets really interesting. What I haven't expected with my poly is that every third photographer who imports his photos into Lightroom is disappointed because of the light. It looks different to that what he saw out on location with his eyes, and some of you also in camera. That's interesting, but also therefore I have a solution for you, of course. Now, light is indeed a quite crappy thing because light is totally subjective. We just see a small spectrum of light with our eyes, and every one of us perceives light, which means luminance and colors, differently. And you guessed it already, also a camera sees differently than human eyes. One of the major problems is that, the color temperature. Depending on the daytime, the light has different temperatures. This means when we look at any object that is white, while the sun is rising or setting, it is not white anymore. It is more yellowish and reddish. But the thing is, our natural intelligence, if you want, our brain, transforms that to white. When we know something should be white, we tend to see it white. That's quite crazy actually when you think about it. But as our camera doesn't have natural intelligence, there was something else invented, which is called white balance. The sensor of a camera just catches the reds, greens and blues from the light. But as the temperature of light is variable during the day, it needs the white balance to compensate for the wrong colors. Actually, they are not wrong. Actually, they are right even. But it is just that we as humans don't see the light correctly. That's a thing we should always keep in our mind. The problem with the white balance is that it just tries to compensate to show white as white, and this usually works well in the middle of the day, but it is very unlikely to be correct at sunrise or sunset. And the thing is, that's exactly that time when landscape photographers like to be out for photography, right? So on the one hand, every one of us perceives light in a different way, and get that, even the difference in perceiving light out on location and perceiving it afterwards on a monitor is different for every single person. Even the difference is different. And on the other hand, the white balance is seldom totally correct unless you are photographing in the middle of the day. And friends, it is just normal that the light is different when you see your photos in Lightroom. So what I can highly recommend is to adjust the color temperature and the tint as one of the first things you do after importing your image to Lightroom. But we have to be careful here. Here's a big trap. What I often see in my workshops is that photographers tend to use this pipette tool of Lightroom to tell Lightroom what white is in the particular image. So when I say that this here is white, for instance, the color temperature of the entire frame will be changed so far that this point I have selected gets really white in my image. But the question is that point here really white? Again, on the one hand, it gets illuminated by that warm sunlight in the early morning. We know this flower here is white through, but in that daytime it is more yellowish and reddish in reality. So not everything we know that is white is really white. But there is one more aspect that gets often overlooked. The question is, how important is it actually to show the colors and the temperature as right as possible? And the thing is, when our goal is to take a documentary photograph of reality, then it is definitely important to show the colors and the temperature as close as possible to reality. But as soon as we want to create a finer photograph, it can get more important to show the colors and the temperature, how the artist has seen them out in the fields with his eyes, but also with his heart. Yeah, good artists don't only look with their eyes. That's a thing we should keep in our mind always. So it's definitely a good idea to adjust the white balance, to adjust the tint and even the colors to show them either close to reality or to show them as you show them as the artist out in the field. By the way, depending on the artistry concept, this kind of integrity of the artist can get really important in fine art photography. It is even a base requirement when when you are using an impressionistic concept. But yeah, there is definitely more of requirements to get photography to art, and I made already a comprehensive video about how to bring your photography to art, and I will link it here for you. My friends, I hope you liked this video. If yes, share it with your friends. Don't forget to tune in next week. There will come a fantastic video as well. I thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.